Hi, this is Ashley Victoria Robinson coming to you live from New York Comic Con here in the Popverse, and I am joined by my fellow Canadian, image founder, creator of Spawn, movie mogul, king of action figures, Todd McFarlane. How are you?
Good. Day one here of the con. We're back after a couple-year hiatus, so it should be exciting. We'll see how it turns out by Sunday.
By Sunday, indeed.
Yeah.
How have your first opening hours of the convention been so far?
Good. I mean, it's interesting walking in, right? It's nice to see the crowd outside again, the lineup, the long lineup. Some people aggravate it, right? So that means you know the convention's going on, all the signs of where you're supposed to go, and although it's been a couple years,
Yeah.
right? Like instantly you're back to 2019, going, now I'm comfortable again. We're at a convention. Here we go.
Right, we're back home.
Yeah.
You started out this weekend with
Yep.
some amazing Spawn movie news. Can you share some of the details with our viewers who might not have heard the announcement?
I've been saying we've been working during the pandemic, and we've got a lot of talented people. We just haven't said their names. So the three that we announced yesterday, A-list talent, right?
Absolutely.
Scott Silver. Scott Silver is the co-writer and writer of The Joker and The Joker 2, and a couple movies that were huge. I was a huge fan of, like 8 Mile and The Fighter, and a whole host of other ones if you look them up. So to get the Joker writer, who, again, that movie was the single largest R-rated movie in the history of cinema. Forget superheroes, comic book. In cinema, boom, we got Academy Award nominated writer. Then Malcolm Spellman. Malcolm Spellman, besides doing things like Bel Air and Empire, which are both great dramas, which is, to me, his super talent, also was the writer on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and is writing the upcoming Captain America #4. So if you like DC movies and or Marvel movies, I grabbed an A-lister for both, and they're both going to be on there. And then a young up-and-coming guy, Matt Mixon, who brings his sort of youth and talent to the mix here. So we've got an A-team, to go along with, Jamie Foxx and Jason Blumhouse. And, as I keep adding these pieces, I become sort of the weak link of the chain. And once we go get ready to sell this, then it'll work, right? Who's not going to want a AAA property right now? Again, Spawn was the #1 selling comic book last year. And all these people who have been attached to not only big movies, but superhero movies, and have been nominated, and in some cases won Academy Awards, right? So let's go, right? So.
You've done such a great job at championing this movie and this property going forward. Like, why has it been so important to you to remain as hands-on with the Spawn movie as you have?
Because I'm anal retentive, and I remember
Precise focus.
I started as a penciler and then became a penciler inker and a penciler inker writer, and then it's like we're going to start our own publishing company. I'm going to start my own toy company. So all of that's still there, but at some point you also have to acknowledge and be a big cheerleader for those that have been doing film for a long time at a high level, right? I'm not going to go in there and say, hey, I'm Todd McFarlane, I created this and this is how it should be. That would be insane, especially if you've got the talent pool that we have and you're going to start asking people for money, right? I mean, at some point you don't go into somebody and say, hey, I need you to give us money to make a movie, and you have no say.
Yeah.
They have to be able to get their investment back. So we're going to be, going in there. We're not trying to do some big special effects extravaganza, so we don't need $200 million. But it's going to be a significant amount of money we're going to be asking for. Originally, the idea was to go sort of low budget, if you will, and I was going to sort of write, produce, and direct that. But as you keep adding these A-list people to the equation, then it just naturally expands. Because you're going, why would you take all this talent and try and do this little tiny thing, Todd, right? And which is, from a CEO point of view, I completely get it, right? But it just means that I have to completely trust, which I do, the people that are now on board.
So you were also super hands-on with Spawn, the comic book, but you are now running your own comic book universe.
Right.
In Spawn. How is that different or more challenging than trying to get a movie off the ground?
We're celebrating our 30th anniversary for both Image and for Spawn, because they started in 1992 at the same time. Spawn isn't one of the longest running, it is the longest running, to the point that we got a Guinness World Record, and every issue that comes out just keeps upping the record. We went from one book, I was doing one book forever, right, for decades. The one book, I was really myopic on the publishing end. And then I'd been teasing and talking about doing a bigger expansion of the universe. And then finally, when issue 300 came around a couple years ago, when we basically crossed the threshold of being the longest running creator-owned book, that I intentionally did a tease. There's a couple covers there on issue 300, 301 that Jerome Pena and I did that had all these characters. And people said, Todd, what does that cover mean? It's not on the inside. And my answer was, just wait, right? It's coming.
Okay.
And it was really my setup for 2021 when we came out with Spawn's Universe, and then King Spawn, the #1 selling book last year, and then Gunslinger and Scorch. And they all set some kind of record. So we do a book a week. Basically, that's what's changed. Instead of a book a month, it's a book a week. So every week I've got to get to the printers and have a book out.
So last year also, you won an award for action figures and for everything that you're doing with McFarlane Toys. And I think of Spawn action figures as being the golden age of the 90s, and you're kind of entering into this silver age perhaps right now with this new generation. So on top of film, on top of comics, now you're doing action figures. How has that changed for you over the years?
So we had the #1 selling comic book beating the Fortune 500 companies, which, sort of the David and Goliath story, which is like, I'm going, yeah. On the toy end, it was what was the line was the DC Multiverse. We had teamed up with Warner Brothers and were able to get a piece of the DC, license for the first time, because I was locked out of, I go, man, how come I can't get any Star Wars, Marvel, DC? It seemed like everybody when I went to Toy Fair had it, except for me. So we were able to finally get it. They had enough confidence in us to let us do our thing, and very quickly, bam, we were outselling not only the other DC products, but outselling the Avengers, Marvel, and Star Wars, right? Wow. I mean, when they actually gave me that data, it was actually shocking to me. Because I don't know what the competitors are doing, but those are, again, Fortune 500 publicly traded companies like Hasbro and Mattel that have, and those types that have these big properties. I think there's a couple things. Look here's an easy formula, and it works. I don't care if anybody wants to start a business. Give the most quality at the cheapest price. That will always win. And for us, if you add one more piece, which I always knew would work, you give them the highest quality at the cheapest price, and you put a AAA brand name on top of it. Batman, Superman. What are you talking about? Of course I can sell that, right? You give me any brand name that people know that's a household name, I'll be able to sell it, right? The only reason I don't sell a lot of Spider-Man right now, because I don't have the license. You give me Spider-Man, I'll sell Spider-Man all day long. We proved that now with the DC Multiverse. And part of it, too, is we made characters that nobody had ever made before.
On behalf of the Tim Drake fans, thank you so much.
Right. So, because this easy thing to do when companies come in is like, oh, we're just going to go back to the tried and true, right? Which there's a value for that, especially internationally, because that's what most people know, moms and their kids. But then there's this sort of next level down, which is us geeks, and we know all these other characters, and visually they're just cool, right? But even if you don't know who they are, they look good in a package.
The Azrael Batman looks amazing.
Yeah, and so we got out of the gate, and I said, hey, can I do some of these characters and or looks that might not be household looks that you're licensing, but I think make a great looking toy. And they were a little skeptical, but they said, you know your business, Todd, and boom, it went. And to the point that they now have the data that last year, like I said, we were the #1 selling action figure with the multiverse. Cool, right? We beat, again, the giants, again. So.
Yeah, DC Multiverse is lighting up Target, Walmart, all of these conventions all over the world. You just acquired Avatar, which is about to go off like a bottle rocket.
Yeah.
Is there any license that you haven't touched? I know you just talked about Spider-Man that you would really love to get your hands on.
I've always said, look, I've always said that I would, again, name's Todd, only rhymes with God, but if I could like make all the contracts in the world, it would be no matter who gets every brand, there would be one line that says, ... but McFarlane Toys gets to do one figure.
Okay.
Just give me one Marvel figure, one Star Wars figure, one Dragon Ball Z figure, one, I don't care what it is. Just let
Dragon
me
Ball Z, Twitter's about to explode.
Right. Just give me one, just so I can say, this is what it would look like if you let me do the whole line. But so we were fortunate to get the Superman, Batman, et al. For the multiverse out there. But no, there's a lot that I'd like to be able to scratch a little bit, but we don't do that. We also have the Black Adam just coming out, right? The new movie coming out with Dwayne Johnson. So I'm hoping that between Black Adam and Avatar, we take all the momentum we already have and go into Christmas and get a couple more hits, if you will.
So everyone gets Black Adam for Christmas.
Yes.
You also
Dwayne Johnson had to sign off on it. So,
oh really?
Oh no. We do some that the contracts are written that the company sign off, and then there's some where it's like no, the actors have to, right? If they sign off, the company signs off. So, and Dwayne was very gracious. His only comment was, Todd, you need to make me more ripped.
As if he could get any more
right.
ripped.
I was like, what are you talking about, dude? You look good. But he's just like, yeah, just make me look like super awesome. So I go, okay, we'll do it. So
you also lit up the Kickstarter action figure market.
Yep.
And we want to know, is there a second campaign coming?
Yes.
Medieval Spawn?
Yes. We were thinking of making the official announcement here at New York, but we'll delay it a couple weeks. But no, he's coming. As a matter of fact, people were like, why are you taking you so long? The first one was an experiment. I'd never done Kickstarter before, and we did it right when the pandemic hit.
Yes.
Right when everybody was shutting down. I thought that was actually not the thing to do. I thought, no, it's time to actually give options, not shut things down. And we set records with that Kickstarter. I also wanted to wait so everybody had it in their hand.
Yep.
So that when I came back with the second one, that they would have now data and they would go, okay, I've got it. He's going to do it again. Is it worth it? Did I like the first one? And let people make as much of an educated decision as possible instead of going, hey, it worked. Let's do it again and grab the money. I think if you sort of pace yourself and again, I try to make my toys as inexpensive as possible. All my comic books, I'm the only guy in the industry now that my comic books are $2.99. Everybody else is $3.99 and up. Can I charge more for some of my toys? Of course I can, but for what reason, right? I mean, I lead a good life. My family, we have a good life. We don't need more, right? And I think that if you are loyal back to the consumer, they will be loyal through thick and thin to some extent and let you make some missteps, which I have, back. So that's what I want to do with the Kickstarter. Say, hey, here it is. You have it. You have all the data. I'm now going to do another one. Is it worth giving me your sort of loyalty again for the second one? So it'll be coming here soon. We'll make that announcement. Yeah.
So as a Canadian, I have to ask, we've seen a lot of different iterations of Spawn. King Spawn was introduced. Any chance of Maple Leaf Spawn? Action figure or comic book?
No, but we do have, not Maple Leaf Spawn, but we do have some characters that will be coming from the Great White North. That's so exciting. Because again, part of the expansion of when Spawn's universe came in was not to make it, and I probably have to change the name eventually, is not to make it so that they're all Spawns, right? I want to have my equivalents of Superman and Batman and Flash and Wonder Woman and Spider-Man's that don't have Spawn powers, right?
Yeah.
Right now, out of the gate, it was the easy sort of lead into it because it's a known quantity and the retailers and the consumers would basically understand it. But the goal for the next couple of years is now to start peppering these new characters that have nothing to do with Hell Power or Spawn or anything. They're just part of this moment that happened in issue 301, which was a record-setting book that opened up this void that sucked all these characters in, so that there's now a plausible reason why there's a universe there. Right?
Any chance of some of those characters expanding out into other mediums? I know with HBO Max, everyone wants the Spawn animated series, but maybe the Scorched animated series?
The answer is yes, with a lot of patience. And the reason I say that is because when we make the deal for Spawn, the movie, the people that are going to be the studio putting out the money are not going to want the word Spawn littered all over town. So I'm going to have to then come in and sort of put it in a freeze. Let Spawn do what it does, and then once Spawn does its thing, then unfreeze it at some point, and then go now, poof. So do we have a lot of interest in a lot of it? Yeah, but I'm in an odd way, I can't sell it to everybody, because then nobody will be interested, because they're going, well, if I've got a piece and he's got a piece and she's got a piece, why? It's not valuable to them, right? They want to contain it a little bit. But I mean, we're also doing the Batman Spawn crossover.
Yes.
Right, that's coming out. With Greg Capullo, who is the preeminent Batman artist and Spawn artist. He's the best artist I've ever had on the Spawn comic book. So having him do both those characters, and the pages just keep, rolling in. We're having a good time with that one. That one will be the biggest selling book of 2022, and I think there's a high likelihood that it can be the biggest selling comic book in our industry of the 21st century. Right? I know what the number is, and I think we can get there, because I know what the number was that we sold last year of King Spawn. Surely you give me Greg Capullo and Batman, we can get way bigger than that. So that's the goal right now, is to set the century mark in our industry with that book.
Well, and you and Greg are longtime collaborators, all the way back to the OG days of Spawn. What is the key to your relationship with him, and why do you keep wanting to work with Greg? I mean, besides being amazing.
Because Greg is about as immature as I am, right? So when we get on the phone, we're just like a bunch of 8-year-old kids. And I think that we both feed off the exact same thing on comic books.
Yes.
Which is, never forget that you were 17 and you were a collector. Never forget that, right? And all we want to do is do a book that reminds, we want to do a book that was the book that we wanted to read when we were 17 and we were collecting, and comic books were super cool, and it was awesome, and it was an event book, right? We'll leave high art and sophistication to others, right? But for Greg and I, we're just going, no, we want to remind people, why do you collect comic books? It's a visual medium, and it's just cool to have these two big characters together, and hopefully an interesting story that has some sort of moments and visuals, because I've seen all the pages from Greg, that people go, wow, that's cool. Man, that's a cool book, and hopefully in 5-10 years, we're still talking about that one shot. That's enough, right? It doesn't have to have a heavy-handed message. It doesn't have to alter either of the characters. It just has to be, wow, I was there, right? Because the previous Batman Spawn that was out there, and we each did one, each company, is now over 25 years old. So anybody that's 25, 26, 27 doesn't remember that book. They weren't there when that Woodstock happened, right? So this is our chance now for people that are going to be down there on the floor to go, I missed out, but we get our moment now. This is our Batman Spawn crossover. That's the one they're going to remember. And Greg and I need to deliver on that just as much as when Frank and I did it 25 years ago.
But everyone who does remember the OG is still clamoring for the new one.
Yeah, because we're going to remind them. We're going to remind, because Greg and I, again, we're from the 90s and the 2000s, there's nothing wrong with just good old-fashioned superhero fun comic books, right? Nothing wrong with it. So that hopefully, look, it's going to come out, it's going to sell, and everybody's going to have an opinion. It's okay. The book will be done, right? We can't undo it. So I'm hoping that there's enough sort of Toddy. He calls me Toddy. Greg calls me Toddy. I call him Greggy. So we're hoping there's enough Toddies and Greggies out there that are us, 30 years earlier, 40 years earlier, and are just going, man, it was super cool. And the critics and the highfalutin, they can have their opinion, cool. To me, it's like the core fan, just going, was that fun? Yeah, it was super awesome, man. Good. That's enough, right? We accomplished what we set out to do.
Well, you've spoken right to my heart with there is nothing wrong with good old-fashioned comic book superhero fun. Todd, thank you for joining us here today at New York Comic Con in the Popverse.